It's Thursday and Bitcoin is moving up. Today we have our price analysis expert joining us for a look at what is happening with Bitcoin, Cardano, MELD, some picks from last week, as well as some live picks from viewers today. Exciting times. Now, just a special note, none of this financial advice, and welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I am your host, Jay Rain. If you like money and you like crypto and you're looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. All right, we do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Let's get right into it. Make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. Let's welcome our producer, D-Money. And why don't we also welcome our special guest, Paul, so we can jump into these picks.
Wait, might as well. Good to have you, Paul. I'm really excited to be doing this as a live show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be live and looking forward to viewers' picks. If you've got some, get ready with them because we've got a few already. But yeah, fantastic.
Now, Jay, do you want them when they throw in a pick? We always like it if you just tell us a little bit about what you like about that pick as well. I mean, just putting in that ticker that is okay, but anyway, if you can give us a little bit of background about what it is you like about the project, that always helps us out too. So
helps us tremendously, and it helps when you put some thought into it too for us, because a lot of these I'll be familiar with, but not all of them. There are literally 16,000 or more altcoins out there. Why don't we get started, Paul, with your view of what's going on in the market? And because you watch not just Bitcoin, but the other markets, and give us a quick update, if you could, on what you're seeing in the other markets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the main outlook we've got at the moment is something we've been talking about for a while, and that is inflation seems to be rearing its head. The Fed raised by 25 basis points. They expect to raise going into the future, but will they raise fast enough, or will they decide to sort of reduce their expectations based upon the fact that the equity markets may be struggling because oil's going up? So there's a real problem out there in terms of how they deal with this. So in other words, in previous cycles, they could have just gone, okay, the economy's in a bit of trouble. It's under pressure because of high oil prices or the war, and sentiment's low, so we'll just cut rates. But now they can't do that because there's too much expectation of inflation, and this can get out of control. It really can. So the first chart I'm looking at is at the US 10-year money, which is going up very quickly, and we've seen this breakout 1.95%. And it's such a low rate compared to long-term history, but you got to look at this trend. This trend is up, and it's heading towards 2.5%. And so this is 10-year money, which is what people use to borrow when they're getting a mortgage or something like that. So this affects business. Now, if it takes out this 2.5%, we could be surging up to 3.25%, and that may unsettle a few people. But the bond market is very sensitive to long-term inflation. So what else gives an indication of what people are thinking about in terms of long-term inflation? Well, when people think that their money is going to be worth less in the future, they'll put it into anything that it isn't the US dollar. And what isn't the US dollar that's money? Gold, silver, precious metals, base metals, but also cryptocurrencies. So lo and behold, as this surge in yields is going up, we're also seeing a little bit of a tick up in the cryptocurrencies. Now, we talked about the altcoins last week and how they were giving us a bit of a steer that the main markets may be ready to move up. But to be fair, we're in this holding pattern, so we're still waiting for some levels to break. But if we look at the most well-known Bitcoin and the technical levels that we needed to take out, last week we talked about this 42,000 level as being the first hurdle to completing a reversal. We discussed it at length as to what a reversal pattern looks like. But this is a base. So a base goes on for a little bit of time, and then the market will break out. So it's either going to break out to the upside or to the downside. It has to go one way or the other. And we're just looking at the evidence week to week to say which way is more likely. Now, the trigger to complete a reversal pattern is this 45,478. And if you can see, the market is pushing up very close to it. It's taking a run up at it, shall we say. And this has been our favored view, that we want to see a break of this line to get it into the sort of 50,000 area. Now, I'm not saying it's going to surge all the way back to 69, or that'd be great, but I don't necessarily think it will do that in one go. But it does take it out of this bearish downward trajectory, which is what I think a lot of the other bears were worried about. So that's what I'm seeing in terms of Bitcoin at the moment.
I'm excited. I think there's lots of things that are prepping for a big breakout, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a sense of something coming, and we're not potentially 100% there yet, but we're seeing some quite strong moves in the altcoins, and that's not to be missed. So I really think there's some interesting stuff going on. I totally agree.
Yes, if this massive run comes that I'm expecting, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be life-changing for a lot of the audience.
Absolutely. I mean, we could be having a series of hyperinflation could be coming. So hyperinflation is basically double-digit, in some cases treble-digit inflation. So that could be what's doing it. I mean, Michael Burry of the Big Short fame has been saying that we're going to get a very high level of inflation for some time. He's a smart guy. So, I certain people, I think you have to pay attention to what they say, and he's one of them.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look. Let's jump into some of these altcoins. Would you mind? This wasn't on the suggested ones from last week. Also, if you have ones you want us to look at in the audience, go ahead and throw them out, and we're going to sprinkle them in, as well as the people that took the time on the comments from last video, last week's Thursday video. We're going to get to those as well. So let's take a look at Cardano. We just did a video on Cardano, and it was breaking upwards yesterday.
Yeah, this was actually one of the ones that is showing some, shall we say, unusual price action. So some of the other altcoins, I think last week we were talking about some of the other coins making this pattern where normally this would be bearish. So this would normally be viewed as what's called a descending triangle. But there was something that was going on around here that said this is going to fail and started to wick up. Now, Cardano has made a very strong move to the upside. So it had underperformed prior to this move. So it has got a little bit of work to do before it can break its main downward trend line, which comes in time against price at 1.41. But this is very nice, strong price action. So this is what you'd expect to see at the end of a trend. So this could be the beginning of a new bull phase. And I know we've had a few sort of failed attempts at that. But, long term, we do still think that this has got a lot of upside potential. It's just been under a bit of a cloud at the moment. So this type of price action is normally characteristic of a new trend. So I think this is good. I would expect to see a pullback within this move because nothing moves in a straight line. It's still kind of recovering some of the losses that have been an extent for a long time. So, when people see gains, they kind of get out and they go, okay, fine, I'm just going to, get out at zero or what have you. But if it can sustain that, then it shows it's going to be a really strong move. So I think a little bit higher, it'll take this trend line out, but the way it's moving, these really strong green bars for me are things that we haven't seen for a long time. And it's come out of what looked like a bearish trend. So I think a lot of technical traders may have been looking for this to go down and shorted it, and they're covering. So yeah, that's a good one.
So in part of the pump, and this comes from vaccinated anti-vaxxers, we were covering this yesterday too, on the Cardano roadmap, one of the milestones that's huge that helps them get to high transactions per second is called the Hydra data, and they did their first Hydra node test. Now, Hydra is kind of like the multi-headed Hydra from, Greek lore or something, where there's lots of heads. With the Hydra update, that for every different node that they have, it should theoretically allow them 1,000 transactions per second. So can you imagine if they have 1,000 nodes doing 1,000 transactions per second, then that's a million transactions per second.
That's
which will blow away Solana's like 58,000 transactions per second. And really, we need to be in the millions of transactions per second in order to handle worldwide volume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think last week I called it Polygon, but it was Polkadot, unless it got edited out. Which, if you did, thanks for doing that. But I'm slightly dyslexic, so there are times when I do get my left and right mixed up. But this was the one for me that was acting unusually. So it had broken this downward trend line, Polkadot, and it made it spike, that stake in the ground type thing that we mentioned before, and was moving up aggressively. Now it still needs to take out this level here, because you can see this is where there was support, then it came back as resistance, and it's on its way back as resistance again. But if it can take out this level, it'll look really good. But it's already broken its downward trend line. Now MATIC as well has done the same thing. It's broken its downward trend line, and the moving averages are crossing over. So this is the medium term moving average. This is the long term moving average, and they've crossed over. Now that can happen, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a sell signal. Some algos will just sell on the break on the basis of that, I should say. But I'm more interested in what the price action is doing. So I only use the moving averages as a guide to once I've got a view of the market, if you see what I mean. So if I'm bullish, I might use the moving average as a stop loss, but I don't tend to use it as a buy or sell signal myself, because I think there are circumstances where human reading of charts can overwrite what the sort of bare computer code, the simplistic, this is cross, so therefore you've got to sell. There are times when that's right, but there's times when that's wrong as well. So the fact that it's broken this downward trend line and again is kind of moving up quite aggressively means a tentative buy for me again. So break of 1.69, $1.69 would be a really good level. And ultimately, if it can get back to 209, that'd be really good. Now, this is one that I favored more than the others because of this ascending price action. So it did go into a consolidation. It's lasted a bit longer than I would have liked, but then everything else has been under a cloud as well. So, it's acted in line with everything else.
Absolutely. Do you mind if we take a look over at MELD? We haven't looked at this one before. This is very sophisticated lending on Cardano, and it's only been tradable. I have it pulled up on CoinGecko, so that you can see. But if you pull it up on maybe CoinGecko or something, it'll give you an idea of. It may pull up on something else, but it's only been tradable since. Let me see the earliest date. The 3rd of February is where CoinGecko goes back to, so a month and a half.
Yeah, I've got it on CoinTrader. If it's okay,
that's perfect. Yes.
Yeah, if it's okay, if I could look at it here, because it seems to have the history. But this is a really interesting chart, and I like the fact that we've got asked to look at this because. Look, there isn't much history, which means you've got to be really careful, because the thing about technical analysis is it works best when no single person can influence the market. It is supposed to be the wisdom of the crowds, if you like, in terms of the opinion of a particular product. So when something's just kicked off like this and there's not a lot of volume, it's difficult to be accurate about what's going on. But there is an inverse head and shoulders. So this has gone down, and it is a really nice little technical pattern. So as long as it holds over 0.141, or we could draw an upward trend line here, I think this is looking good. So, it's a very speculative buy given how, early it is and how we haven't got much data. But I would say, given this technical pattern, I'd be more a buyer than a seller.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not certain what to think of this price. The tokenomics behind it. I love this project long term. I think it's going to be amazing. We've had on the founder of MELD twice on our program. I think he's very dynamic. He has an amazing team. He's got the right people in the right places. And so I'm very bullish on this long term. Short term, I don't know what to think about with the price action. They did initial stake pool offering where if you delegated Cardano to their stake pools, you would earn MELD. And so all that MELD is in people's hands. Now, they've had the ability to trade it for a little while now. And so that did bring the price down to those lows that you saw. And so maybe it's then ready to go upwards, that those that were going to sell sold, and it's ready to then take off. I just don't have a pattern to look at with this. They are a very solid long-term project. So I have a lot of this, and I'm just going to hold it. See where it goes. If it does get, for some reason, reverse and go cheaper, well, then I'll be buying a bunch more.
Well, it looks like an inverse head and shoulders. So we've got a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. So that's why I like the makeup of the pattern. Normally, that's a trend-ending signal. So if you can imagine the market coming from above the screen and coming down, and if you look at this, if you were to draw a line underneath the price action from here and then up again, it looks like a V. So the market is, if this is the center, it's almost symmetrical. So that's why I like it. But, there isn't, as I say, much data. So I can completely understand why you'd be, cautious. In fact, you've got to be cautious on something like this and any coins that's not been trading for very long.
Look at another bullish thing about it. It's fully diluted market cap. So let me share. I'm going to share this. Looking at CoinGecko here. Look at this fully diluted market cap. It's only 600 million, which isn't really a lot for what they do. Now, realize that maybe 1/4 of the total is in circulation. So that means 150 million market cap. So with that in mind, I'm just going to change my thoughts to a buy, just because that tells me where it's at. And I just think that if it continues to come together, that market cap could be so much higher than this.
Yeah. Interesting. Good one. Definitely one that seems to be, for me, like the ground floor. So, as I've always said, I just want to know where I'm wrong. And I think here, you can put in a stop, which would be relatively close. If you want to give it a bit of space, it shouldn't really go below 0.092. And if it does, then, I would be exiting and looking elsewhere. But while it's above,
Absolutely. Okay. Justin Time gave us a super chat on Solbank. He said, please tell me Solbank didn't rug. Great question. They've been really slow to answer in Telegram. This is a really risky project that I'm heavily invested into Solbank. I put a lot into it because it is one we've looked at a number of times, Paul. And it's basically a privacy wallet on Solana where people can't track what funds you have, what funds you send, what funds you receive, and where that's all going. And I like that narrative very well. A lot of the people on Telegram have been concerned because the admins haven't been responding. Now, I do see that a lot during the bear market. We saw a ton of that. And it's fair to say this little last 3 or 4 months has been like a mini bear market. And so the devs have gone really quiet. Now, I've been through that before and seen a lot of that. And when the rains come, it's amazing what comes back to life. But that's where you really see what's dead and what's alive. So there are some signs that are concerning. That's like, wow. But, there's this project called Verge that was a privacy wallet. And you could have bought it in, say, October 2017, where everyone pretty much thought it was dead. They weren't communicating all that much. And it then went like 2000x from that price when the privacy narrative came around. So I do hold a bunch. It's way down. Am I going to sell it? No way. No way, because for me, this is a buy area. So I already have significant placement in it. And I have bought a little bit more like a week and a half ago. Just taking that upside. So thanks for that question. That's one that I'm interested in as well. So let's jump back into the ones from last week. Do you mind if we look at HBAR, Paul?
Yeah, sure. So I prepped some of the charts and just to make sure I'm getting the right ones. So is this is Hedera, yeah? Unless I've
yeah.
Okay, cool. So this rings a bell. So we've obviously looked at it before. Short term, it's been in this range. So if we go back actually to a bit longer than short term, March 21, we're operating in this range, but that's part of this overall upward trend. It's making this, this descending triangle that fails and then breaks out. We've seen this in a few markets already, which is again, very interesting how that's working. So although this doesn't look particularly significant, given that the other markets have done it and surged, I think this could be the beginning of something. So it's more, the overall trend is bullish. The markets seem to be showing a bit of bid. There could be a breakout in Bitcoin through a key resistance point. Now, this would need to get through this 0.26 area because it failed there twice. You see, you got resistance 1, resistance 2. So it's just starting that journey now. But if it can do that, then this whole area here would be a consolidation before we get a move to, all-time highs, or if that's, this all-time highs on this chart. So there are reasons to be bullish, there are reasons to be positive. If we draw in a trend line, its main trend will come in at this rate. So it needs to go a little bit further before it breaks that. An intermediate trend has been broken though. So if we take this trend line, which was a little bit sharper, this is why I think we're getting a bit of interest, because it's starting to break this line. And so that's the first buy point. So you'd buy here with a stop loss below. Now, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying this is technically how you would view it. This 1, 2, 3 low points. So these 3 low points represent buy points. So people have bought there. And if it breaks these levels, then it's going to drop down to the next sort of, tier, if you like. So for me, this is where I'd be exiting any position that I buy here. So we've got a relatively close stop and a good sort of valid technical reason to potentially jump in. So I'm going to say, it's 65, 35, but I'd still go with the bull side.
Yeah. Cool. Looking good. There's a lot of things that are showing bottom signals that we've hit the bottom and maybe turning around. Use the word maybe because who knows? Sometimes the best chances are that it breaks up from here, but that's just a % chance. Some world event could change that.
Yeah.
So what I know is I like the prices where they're at. They could go lower. I don't think they will. But the upside, when it does go well, the upside from here could be really, really nice. That's the way I've been structuring my investments. Now, let's look over at CFI.
Okay, CFI. Okay, that's
That's
one.
CyberFi. Now, this is a Launchpad project. I really like the team on this. I talked to them months ago. They're really cool. And like most Launchpad projects, their price has gotten savage.
So it's CFI.
Is
it CyberFi? Right,
CyberFi,
gotcha. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So what can we say about this? You're right. It has got savaged, but it's in a very good support area. So this is where it kicked off this rally. So this area here has got a lot of support, and it's coming into that now. So I think below here is where I'd start to panic, sort of 190, between 190 and 210. There's not a lot to say very short term to buy it, unfortunately, other than that you've got this support here. Personally, I'd give it a hurdle to break to get me bullish. Hang on, let's just pop that there. The hurdle to break would be this downward trend line, because it's been quite a sharp rate. A sharp decline, a sharp trend line like this, it shouldn't be too hard for the market to break it. And what I mean by that is it only has to go sideways for a bit to actually break a line like this, because it's been so aggressive. But it also sort of keeps me on the right side of trying to pick the low before there's a valid technical support point or reversal pattern or something like that. So I think the minimum for me is it needs to break this trend line. So it's a wait for the moment. That comes in around 4.17. And as you see, it's a different way of thinking, because, one could buy against support, but I don't mind paying more for it if it's going in the direction that I want it to go in. But I completely appreciate that there's smarter people than me out there who, know more about the technology and know when something's cheap.
Yeah. The Launchpad, there's so many Launchpads now. That's only thing I'm a little bit concerned about with a lot of the Launchpads is there's so many different Launchpad projects. But if I'm right, that another leg of the bull run is coming. And a lot of this is driven by new money coming to the market, and then more new money comes in the market, and then even more piles in, chasing gains or chasing the green candles. And so what happens is they come in, they start to get a little bit of the feel that's going on, and they figure out they want to participate in initial DEX offerings. And what happens is that drives the price of Launchpad tokens up, because they need to hold those in order to be able to get things at the initial DEX offering. And that's when these things take off. And my guess is that if I'm right on what's going to happen, it'll be about 3 times larger than March's pump. Now, how that equates, does it mean like 3x from the previous highs on things like CyberFi? I don't know how that will turn out. There's more launch pads now than there was back then. And so some of that money will probably get diluted across multiple launch pads, though I did really like the team at CyberFi. If it's okay, let's take a viewer pick and insert it. And let's throw Wanchain in there. Now, Wanchain has a strategic relationship with us that we love, and they give us $500 a month, or $500 not dollars, but Wanchain a month to give away to the audience.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, well, this is clearly in a retracement, if I've got the right one, which I think I have. So this is in a retracement. I have to wait here for sure, but it's coming into a good base, a good area of support. So this whole area here is from the base that it built up before it went into this rally. So, you know, I think whilst it might go a bit lower, it's entering an interesting area where, you know, I think it should stop. Now,
I think it's missing some data on that chart for some reason, because I'm showing it up at 50 cents right now.
Right. Okay. Let's have a look. Wanchain. Is it right?
Yeah,
So
Wanchain.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because some of these I've noticed with some of the other coins, they're not updating anymore. So right, this is it. So it obviously come off some exchanges for whatever reason. So that's better. That's much better. So as we were saying, it was coming into support and it's actually had a good bounce. So that's nice. So it's done a good job bouncing this area here. Look at the volume. Wow, that really went up. So somebody must have liked it there. Did they announce something? I don't know. Actually, in technicals, we don't really look at that stuff. We just look at the price action. But you can tell that something must have been announced or something must have happened. This is the trend line I'd like it to take out. If we take a step back and say, well, what's going on? If we go back from August 18 to today, we're still in pretty much the same area that we've been. So there isn't a major trend from here. But this was a downward trend and it's reversing and going back up again. So if we take this as the beginning of the new bull trend, you know, this is phase one, this is a correction, then we should be seeing another breakout to the upside and a move back to 2.566 to be exact. So I would like this trend line to break. It's still a wait for me because it's a little bit volatile, but I'm encouraged by the volume. I'm encouraged by the fact that it did bounce in this support zone we didn't see before. And it's getting very close to this key downward trend line for me. So I think it will have broken it in a couple of weeks' time. But once it does that, that's my signal to buy it.
Yeah, there's another token that one of our viewers asked us to look at, and it's coupled with this. And I farm using this every day on the Wanchain network. And so I'll bring up my screen so I can share it with the viewers.
Sure.
So this is, for those that aren't familiar with farming, it's related to DeFi, and it's a difficult thing to explain, but essentially you're providing trading pairs that people can trade against. And some farming things, so specifically WanSwap is what I'm providing some liquidity for. You can then stake those liquidity pool tokens on Zookeeper and earn some extra rewards. And they're giving you Zoo token and WASP token. So the Zoo token is what one of our viewers asked us to look at. Could you see if you could find on your charts the Zoo token?
Sure. Zoo token.
And let's pull up your, there we go.
Right.
It's just ZOO, and it's Zookeeper is the
There we go. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, this is interesting. So this is one of those classic, it's gone into its long-term support area. And look, for me, that break right there would have been where I would have bailed out, and I'd have been wrong. So for me, I wouldn't know whether that was going to keep going down or turn around. But it has come back, which is a really good sign. It's broken this downward trend line, which is again a really good sign. So it's done a very nice reversal. So it looks like its fortunes are changing. This would make a double bottom, which is a W shape. Again, exactly right where it is now, which is probably why it's bumping up against that level at the moment, because it's so key. You can either, in technicals, you can either wait just below a level and buy it ahead of the breakout. Then you will be slightly ahead, but there are more times when it fails. You can wait for the breakout, but then you're chasing the ball a little bit. So for me, it depends on whatever strategy you like. I prefer to go in just a little ahead, and if it doesn't work, I just bail out. But on this one, it's sitting right below the trend line. So the breakout point here. So I would buy it. Technically, as I say, you could wait for it just to go up a little bit more to confirm it's broken that resistance. That's just a preference as to how one trades it. But if it's going to take a big move to the upside, it's not going to make a lot of difference whether you wait a little bit or whether you take it before the breakout. But it's looking interesting technically. So this is a buy from a technical point of view, and I always have to have a parachute level to get me out, and I think a reasonable place would be below 0.58. So if it takes that out, the breakout point, I would be a bit disappointed. So I would be exiting and waiting for another opportunity. Now it could turn into a more complex reversal. So you've got a left shoulder potentially. This could be the head. It could come back and go into the right shoulder and then go up, which is one of the things about technical analysis. You can have another bite of the cherry as long as you protect your capital.
Our viewer for our next one is looking at, I think they're asking for status. SNT is the ticker symbol. This comes from a suggestion last week.
SNT, right? Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah, okay. So this is looking interesting. We have seen this range, so it's been consolidating, and I think, if I'm right, we probably were saying that it's being pressed into a corner, because if I didn't say that, I should have said it, because that's what's going on. It's being pressed into a triangular constriction, which means that the rallies and the dips are getting closer and closer together, and then it should break out. Now, which way should it break? I think it should break out to the upside, not because I'm biased to the upside, but because the prior trend is to the upside. So if this trend was coming from up here, coming down, I'd be biased to the downside. So I'm inferring the trend from the previous trend. So it's getting ready for a breakout. Now we can get an early sort of steer that it's broken out from an intermediate trend break, and that would be, see these three little resistance points, 1, 2, 3. See how they fit together really nicely. Well, if it takes that out, then that should push it to this line, which should then break and then get to this resistance point here, 0.122. And then if it takes that out, it's going to the new high. So those are the important sort of signposts for me along the way. I mean, right here, right now, it's a bit of a wait, but it doesn't take much to turn this bullish. So, I'd understand someone trying to get in a bit early on it.
Yeah. I like the price where it's at, kind of. For me, it's probably a buy at this price. There's so much that I like, though.
Oh, you mean other things, right?
Yeah, there's so many different things that I like. I don't know. So for me, this is just a wait kind of feel. Like I like to buy bottoms, and it's no longer at a bottom. It looks like it's maybe going the right direction, but if it has another dip down, that's when I would look solidly at it. I don't have any positions on this at present. One of the viewers asked us to look at one, which I'd love to look at as well, and that's Illuvium, ILV.
What a name! That sounds amazing.
This
Sounds
is
very exotic.
probably going to be an amazing video game.
So Illuvium, is that the correct one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. See if that's okay. We got up to date data. 23rd of March. Yeah, that looks like it. Wow, what a smooth chart. This is interesting. What is that? Really, $600? No.
Yep.
Goodness me, how have I never heard of this before? Thanks for pointing it out. It's amazing. Well, look, this is an upward trend. It's had its correction. It's come back into support. So this was its kind of stopping off point. It's found support there, which is good. It's broken its recent trend line, which is again good. So I think this is bullish. So I would go with a buy with a stop loss below this level here, 474. It's interesting that it's such a relatively high level. You're not, how can I put this? It's when you're trading these altcoins, I don't know what you think about this, but you're normally expecting it to be sort of fractions of a cent or something like that. So when you actually see, such a big number like this, you think, wow, that's it feels like a much bigger commitment. But yeah, I mean, it shouldn't matter. It's just whether the technology is good or not. If you compare it to some of the other charts, it's been doing really well. I mean, that's a really smooth upward trend. Okay, it's not done so well since December. It's correcting, but so's everything else. It's still, relatively high. So yeah, looking good.
I really like this one long term. We had Kieran Warwick, who is the CEO, join us. His brother is heavily involved in DeFi and founded Synthetics, which has been a really big synthetic project for trading synthetic versions of assets. And so really well connected in the space, very, very driven, amazing team. They've released some trailers of what's going on or some updates, what's going on with the game. It looks really, really fun to play. And there's some good passive rewards for holding your Illuvium and staking it. So it might be, for me, this is a buy. I mean, I hope it comes down for one. I didn't realize it had gotten so cheaper. I probably would have bought some already. I haven't taken a look at it in a while, and that's one of the downsides of crypto, is that there's so many interesting projects, and this is definitely one that's interesting. I did not want to be buying it when it was at 1,800, and so it's come back down. It might not go much below this. Again, maybe if we're lucky, and then I'd probably pick up some more. So I like it at this price.
Cool. Thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, great viewer suggestions. Let's look at another one from last week. Let's look at SOV.
Okay, so this is Sovryn, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, I think I remember us talking about this. For me, this is still a wait because it hasn't changed its trend. This has been a very, very consistent downward trend. And until I see some evidence of like a pickup of volume, a sharp spike, I don't mind a sharp spike to the downside if it means it's shaking people out. So if it goes down, fast and then turns around and goes back up again, that tells me it's like shaking out on the positions and it could be the end of the trend. What I don't like to see is this very slow drip feed move down, which is it's less indicating a change in sentiment. It's just sort of a more persistent move. But having said that, its downward trend is, because it's consistent, let's draw the line in, you see that it wouldn't take much to take a reversal of it. In other words, it wouldn't take much to break the trend line. So if it can take this line out, then it would look a hell of a lot better. If you're going to get sort of fine into the detail here, there was good support here, because look, it went sideways for a bit and then use that as resistance and then fell. So for me, this area here, 3.53, would be an important crossing point to negate the trend and also to be showing that it's putting the sort of bearishness behind it, because it would have taken out a key resistance point. So I'd like to see it through there. And I personally would be waiting for that rather than trying to pick a low. But I defer to people who know more about these technologies to say whether whether it's a screaming buy and I'll be sort of regretting not getting in at the low.
Yeah, for me, it's a wait too. I don't know this one very well on a fundamental level. So, and I'm not loving what the charts are showing. It's showing like a rounding bottom, but it's still heading downwards, right? So it is a DeFi project. There's so many DeFi projects, and DeFi hasn't come into the narrative for a long time. It's been a year since DeFi itself came into the narrative. So it's possible if DeFi comes strong in the narrative, this and every other DeFi project goes crazy. So, but there's other DeFi projects that I know better that I really like. So for me, it's a no.
Yeah, for the moment. I mean, it's interesting that DeFi is under a cloud, and it will turn, that's for sure, because it is such an interesting space. I mean, I know I would say that, but yeah, it is. So yeah, so we'll wait for that turnaround.
Sweet. Well, let's take a look at Spores. We're done with the picks from last week, and so I'm just going through some of the ones picked by our current the audience that's here.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for your picks. So it's Spores Network, isn't it, from memory? Unless I've got that wrong. Which hang on, that's against Bitcoin. Why has it done that? Let's just change that. There we go. Okay, does that look right to you? That's not updated.
Yeah,
it's not updated. So it would be. Let's try it on a different one. Let's try it on this one. No, that was the same one. Here we go. So that looks more like it. So a small reversal is what we're seeing here. A little inverse head and shoulders, which is good. So this is the beginning of a trend. This is a fledgling, upward move where we could actually draw a trend line in, which we haven't been able to really do before for a while. So there's an upward trend line here forming. So this is the beginning of something interesting. It's right on this resistance point, which was support. So support resistance reverses its roles. So you see how it went down, it bounced around, and then it broke it. Well, now it's coming back to look at that. Now, these levels are always key because it tells us that people have bought at these points. So when it comes back, they try and bail out. So the market might consolidate here for a bit, but I like that upward trend. So I think this is giving us the first proper signs of a base and some decent price action to get behind. So, it's not a screaming upward trend, but there's still time. So I think this is worth having a go at. I would put a stop in, and because it's at the beginning of the trend, your stop can be relatively close. So what that means is your risk against reward. If I'm wrong and it turns down and it breaks my stop or hits my stop, then I haven't lost very much because I've only started at the beginning of the trend. But the upside is, wherever it goes. So yeah, I think I'm going to say this is a buy.
Yeah. I did buy some of this recently, so it's definitely a buy for me. So, and I have a bunch already. I bought some more Spores, so
yeah,
I definitely like it. I missed the bottom again. It's so hard to catch the bottom. I think my buy price was right around this price, so it's I hope it turns down one more time so I can get some of it at the 0.25 cents range.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So I think we talked about it before, but again, I can't, there's so many that, I can't remember them all either. But I do remember thinking that there was some good support here, possibly when we talked about it last time. But obviously it's broken a bit below that now, but it's recovering. So that's, as I say, a good sign, good enough.
Let's take a look at COPI, and it's for Cornucopias, and that's COPI.
COPI. Okay, Cornucopias, US dollar, that one. Yep. Yeah, this is without a lot of data, this is a bit tricky because downward trend, it was accelerating to the downside, which looked a bit hairy for a bit, and then it's hit some solid support and turned around. So this has really saved it, this price action here. So, you know, I don't know what to make of it really, because it's had a really nice bounce, but it's just recovered what it's sort of lost very recently. Now, I can see an potential inverse head and shoulders here. So there's the left shoulder. This could be the head. If it can just edge up a little bit more, let me draw in the neckline. If it can just edge up a bit more, then it would look good enough to buy. So this would be the inverse head and shoulders. If it takes that out, off we go. Now, I know some people try to buy on the right shoulder, so they sort of try and get in while it's rounding, and then, you know, they get in a bit early. That's a strategy, but you can also, you know, it can also fail. So it can also just keep going straight down. So there's no guarantees. Of course, there's no guarantees with anything, you know that. But you know, this is what looks interesting about it, because it could be making this right shoulder. So I need the confirmation, so I'd have to wait. But I would understand somebody trying to pick it up here. Perhaps if you're a bit more speculative, and then you could put a stop sort of just a little bit lower, because if it goes down, then it's going to, you know, have a bigger retracement. As long as it stops somewhere around 0.013, around this area, as long as it stops, it's still, you know, relatively symmetrical. So what the dip that it's made on the left could be the same size dip that it does on the right. We prefer it to be a shallower dip, because that shows that people are coming in and buying it a bit earlier. So when markets are turning around, I like to see a shallow dip and then a sharp move up to tell me that, you know, they really see it as a great opportunity and they don't want to miss it. But as I say, it can come a bit lower. But it's this green candle here that it'd be retracing. So that's obviously got people excited for some reason. And we don't really want to, if there's a good opportunity, usually the market doesn't give you much more of an opportunity to jump back in once it's on the move. So, you know, down to about, as I say, this 0.0215 area, 218, would be about far enough. If it got much lower than that, I'd be thinking, well, yeah, it's probably going to unwind. So it's a wait for me, but it's a very interesting wait.
Yeah. I like Cornucopias a lot. We've had them join us a couple of times. This is a video game that's pretty advanced, like AAA level video game, and it'll be running on top of Cardano. And so it's the first major video game that'll be running on top of Cardano. So they released some NFT sales. They had this really cool bubble jet, and then they had like a speeder bike, and those came out. They are in their vesting schedule problems of, like, at first, a lot of projects, they squeeze the total number of tokens that are available on the market at first, and they lock up the pre-sale investors. And then every month or every 2 months or whatever their vesting schedule is, some of those tokens unlock. So it does put downward pressure on the price. So because it just adds in a lot of the pooled VCs. They often sell. So it does put downward pressure on the price. Now, if there's very much upward pressure, it'll vastly counteract and wipe out that sell pressure, and that the price will still go up and could go crazy. So if we have this major leg of the bull run that really is coming at continues this direction, it'll counteract that sell pressure that will be incoming. If it doesn't, or it just takes another month or 2 or 3 to get there, then the price might go lower. So I picked up some COPI at lows, so I'm happy with my position, but should it go lower, I'm going to get some more.
Cool.
So I love this project. Very, very bullish on it long term. Might the price get cheaper? It might. It might. All right, let's take a look over at OMI. Yes, Mehdi wants us to look at OMI. Let's definitely look at OMI. I would love Paul's thoughts on this.
Right. So we have to go into CoinGecko, I think, for that, because actually, let's see if I can find it on here. If
TradingView has it. Ecomi.
Yeah,
you should have it. Ecomi. The OMI. Yeah, you're looking for not a Misa Go, but Ecomi Tether. Yep.
There we go. Yeah. Right. So I've just changed my. Let's put that. There we go. try to make it a bit more readable. So I changed the decimal points. So yeah, I mean, look, this is still consolidating. This price action here is a descending triangle. So it's broken the low of that. But we've seen, as I say, a few markets that have done that and then turned around. So it's not moving into it's not like a new fresh downward trend. So we're not discounting everything that's come to the left here. In other words, this is not like, these aren't fresh lows it's making, it's retracing its trend. So I think we got interested in this around here. That was the base, wasn't it? It was 1, 2, and then it broke this little pennant formation and it stopped at this key resistance point. So, it's coming back. It's come back in quite an aggressive retracement, but it's still part of this range. If we were to get like an average of prices of this whole chart, we'd probably be around 0.0045. So it's like it's non-trending from the whole chart, if you see what I mean. So it's relatively neutral where it is now. But I think given where everything else is going, this will eventually turn around. So for me, it is a wait at the moment, just because I need to see price action turning. But it's also like, I know you like the technology a lot, and compared to some of the other ones where it does look like they're going down, this doesn't look like that. It just looks like it's trading a range. So in ranges, you try to play the bottom of the range, and it's nearer or heading towards the basing part of this range where it is now. And we've seen things like Cardano turn around, and we've seen, Polkadot and things like that, coins that just look really bearish, and then suddenly, boom, they turn around as well. So these things tend to happen in waves. So they've gone. I'd be thinking that this area here would be where it'd be interesting to pick some up. If it breaks below 0.0228, then anyone who's waiting to pick it up at much cheaper levels, I think we get a better opportunity, because it will go lower. But for the moment, I think it's a wait, but it's a wait within its range. So it's heading into sort of an interesting support point. I'd like to see this trend line break, and then I would buy it. So if that breaks, if I'm right about this synchronization and everything turning over, and the market looks around and goes, okay, right, we've missed this trade, so what else can we buy? I want to look for that sort of price action, and we'll see that in some sharp moves. So I'll be on alert this week that could potentially be happening, but I can't call it yet, because it's not actually happening yet. I need to wait for some evidence.
So for me, this is a buy, even though I just sold. Now, why would I be selling when it's a buy? Because Gate.io made some massive shifts, and they're like restricting like 18 to 20 different countries. And so I have a bunch on Gate.io, and they won't allow you to withdraw. They don't think they updated their chain. So in order to move it off, I have to sell it to USDT, and then I buy it. So I'm not only just trying to transfer it over and buy it back to another exchange, I actually sent more funds over to buy even more. So for me, this is a buy. Might get cheaper. That's okay. I don't mind if it gets cheaper, because I really like this one for the medium term. And I pray that it gets cheaper, and then I will buy even more.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Okay, taking a look at Matt V asks if Form is still alive. Yes, Form is still alive. I talked to one of the team members recently, and it's had some interesting things. Now, this was really interesting. Normally, that normal vesting schedule just slaughters. Let me just share. Normally, that vesting schedule slaughters a lot of projects. When they came out in the middle of a bear trend, which was in the summer. They did really well against everything else. They did really, really well. And then it's gone down. They had like a hack. They've also had some initial team members that, they took part of their compensation Form tokens. And I understand that some of those people have dumped their tokens. at lows, which is crazy. But as far as I know, they're still developing. They are heavily on the DeFi side, so they're not running because we're not in a DeFi pump and haven't been in a DeFi narrative for a while. So for me, it's a buy, and I have bought more. I also have a massive amount that I have and that I have staked. The staking rewards are really, really good. So I have them on the Binance Smart Chain and just have them staked there. And so look, you should be able to find these on your charts. I just want to go into a little bit of background of what I know on this one.
Sure.
This will have to be our last one because D and I both have to peace out.
Sure. Should we look at IOTA? Because we got a note to say that would be one that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So it's just a note that we've got. So is this the one, IOTA?
We haven't looked at IOTA in a long time, so let's take a quick look at that.
Yeah, sure. Oh, hello. That's just bit. There we go. It's come back.
Share your screen.
Okay. So yeah, not bad timing to be looking at IOTA. So this is, we look at this as a consolidation. So we got a trend. This whole area here has been one big consolidation. So we're waiting for the next big breakout. This is bouncing. So it's found support, and it's found support near the prior low. So I think as long as it's holding above here, for me, it's a buy. So that level is 0.58. So I'm going to take a view that I think most things are going to start to turn up. Now, I could be completely wrong, and maybe I'm going to eat my words next week, but it does look like there is some interesting short-term price action that could be accelerating, and it's more like what everything else is looking and how, I showed you that really short-term price action in OMI. It looked like this, and then it could potentially do this, right? So this is already moved up, whereas Ecomi was like, it's here. So there's a few things that are starting to break out. This is good resistance as well. If it closes over that, it should go to the next level. So one being a psychological point, if it can take that out, it'd be great as well. So, it's got a chance of doing that now. And so this is a really good resistance point. Because it was support so many times. So if it can take that out, then it's opening up the upside for bigger levels. So, I would take a chance on it, and that's also based on the bigger prior trend and the fact that at some point this has got to resolve, and given the prior trend is bullish, it should resolve to the upside. Good call.
This one I haven't followed closely in a long time, but this was a big one that ran in 2017 to really big heights as the Internet of Things really was a narrative that took off. And of course, with their name, it did really, really well. And then it got savaged during the big pullbacks, and they're continuing to work on it. There were some fundamental flaws that were holding them back. And it sounds like they've solved some of those. So cool. Appreciate your views on that, Paul.
My pleasure. Thank you for your picks, guys. It's always a pleasure. It's great to see them, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. If you're in the audience, you're ready to be a rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of crypto, really to level up your crypto game. I do know this contrarian approach coupled with fundamental analysis, you add in a lot of patience. It works very, very well over time. If you haven't already, consider hitting that all notifications bell, and then tune in when our videos pop up. We do a live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and now an additional VV live stream in the Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And then we have shorter videos that launch throughout the week. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, no rain, no gain. No.
Came into this space chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I'll sell when it's high, I'll buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling your parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, Rainmaker, making my own star. I'm with the future.